we thought of a number of topics that might be shared today, including starting with just reading John Lewis's final letter. I don't know how many of you were able to read that in the New York Times. I just think it would kind of start us in a mood or in a place where we can honor the past and honor the work that's gone before us, and also feel the call to duty. And also, because we have youth here too, this whole idea of bridging into the future generations. I think this letter does it so beautifully. So read, I'm going to try to do this. I hit present now. We call this a popcorn read. So I'll start the first paragraph, and anyone who wants to jump in, do that. I just think it would be fun for today. So do you want me to cancel me?
Yeah,
Okay,
go for it, Kimi.
Okay. So how do I make it bigger? Okay, I'll start. While my time here has now come to an end, I want you to know that in the last days and hours of my life, you inspired me. You filled me with hope about the next chapter of the great American story when you used your power to make a difference in our society. Millions of people motivated simply by human compassion laid down the burdens of division. Around the country and the world, you set aside race, class, age, language, and nationality to demand respect for human dignity.
That is why I had to visit Black Lives Matter Plaza in Washington, though I was admitted to the hospital the following day. I just had to see and feel it for myself that after many years of silent witness, the truth is still marching on.
Emmett Till was my George Floyd. He was my Rashard Brooks, Sandra Bland, and Breonna Taylor. He was 14 when he was killed, and I was only 15 years old at the time. I will never, ever forget the moment when it became so clear that he could easily have been me. In those days, fear constrained us like an imaginary prison, and troubling thoughts of potential brutality committed for no understandable reason were the bars.
Though I was surrounded by two loving parents, plenty of brothers and sisters and cousins, their love could not protect me from the unholy oppression, oops, it bounced, waiting just outside that family circle. Unchecked, unrestrained violence and government-sanctioned terror had the power to turn a simple stroll to the store for some Skittles, or for some Skittles or an innocent morning jog down a lonesome country road into a nightmare. If we are to survive as one unified nation, we must discover what so readily takes root in our hearts that could rob Mother Emanuel Church in South Carolina of her brightness and best, shoot unwitting concert goers in Las Vegas, and choke to death the hopes and dreams of a gifted violinist like Elijah McClain.
Like so many young people today,
Go ahead.
I was searching for a way out, or some might say a way in. And then I heard the voice of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on an old radio. He was talking about the philosophy and discipline of nonviolence. He said, we are all complicit when we tolerate injustice. He said, it is not enough to say it will get better by and by. He said, each of us has a moral obligation to stand up, and speak out. When you see something that is not right, you must say something. You must do something. Democracy is not a state, it is an act, and each generation must do its part to help build what we call the beloved community, a nation and world society at peace with itself.
Ordinary people with extraordinary
vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. Voting and participating in the democratic process are key. The vote is the most powerful nonviolent change agent you have in a democratic society. You must use it because it is not guaranteed. You can lose it.
You must also study and learn the lessons of history because humanity has been involved in this soul-wrenching existential struggle for a very long time. People on every continent have stood in your shoes, though decades and centuries before you. The truth does not change, and that is why the answers worked out long ago can help you find solutions to the challenges of our time. Continue to build union between movements stretching across the globe, because we must put away our willingness to profit from the exploitation of others.
Though I may not be here with you, I urge you to answer the highest calling of your heart and stand up for what you truly believe. In my life, I have done all I can to demonstrate that the way of peace, the way of love and nonviolence is the more excellent way. Now it is your turn to let freedom ring.
When historians pick up their pens to write the story of the 21st century, let them say that it was your generation who laid down the heavy burdens of hate at last, and that peace finally triumphed over violence, aggression, and war. So I say to you, walk with the wind, brothers and sisters, and let the spirit of peace and the power of everlasting love be your guide.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I'm not crying.
That's quite a burden, isn't it? To have carried for an 80-year lifetime, and now for us to carry and think, yeah, we have to carry on, and you kids have to carry on, and you got a long path ahead of you. But we can't quit. We can't afford to be bummed out or burned out or discouraged or despairing. We can't afford it. We have to keep going.
Barack Obama said in his eulogy that that John Lewis was on a test of the Freedom Riders, just he and a buddy, when they were 20. They were on a bus by themselves, sitting in the front seat, refusing to move, in the middle of the night, stopping at all these little towns. What courage. It really is powerful.
Roger, beyond that.
Any comments, or has it made you want to do something in particular, or
We had a local man who was a friend of ours, who was one of the Freedom Riders. His name was Roger Lowen. And he was there. He was beat up. He was white, but he had the conscience, you know, the foresight to be there and know the injustice. And Roger has since left us. But he told us stories about what had happened, and that really opened my eyes up, and Bob's eyes too, that firsthand accounts, when you hear it from somebody that's standing right there in front of you, it's so powerful. Yeah.
Kept working in the criminal justice too.
Yeah, and he kept working on criminal justice reform also, all of his life. He never stopped. I don't know if a lot of you knew Roger, but and his wife Jane McCotter still lives here part-time on Bainbridge. So anyhow, it would.
And then he did barn.
Bob's feeding me stuff here. And then he started the barn. Actually, he was quite a mover and shaker in our community. He was the one that was the brainchild of that. So, but that knowing Roger and, you know, seeing the fire in his eyes, and it changed my life. It really did. It changed both of our lives. So, and I want to continue his, you know, passed on the torch. And when I see these young faces here, you know, when we go, you're going to be doing it also, and, you know, get your friends involved. We can't stop, you know, create good trouble, as John Lewis said, you know, it's necessary when you see such people doing such terrible things to our voting rights, and what a multitude of other things that, you know, we all know about. So we have to stop this. So there you go.
I guess I have a question for you, high school kids and teachers. Are you aware of is there a program at the high school to get people to enroll for voting? I know there was supposed to be in Washington that automatically everybody as you turn 18, you would be enrolled for voting, but I'm not sure if that's in place yet. Do you know?
I know that starting, I think 2 years ago, a group of actual volunteers from the community came in during our final, what do we call it? Like that spring day where we have games and things. So they came and set up tables, and they were getting people to sign up for voting, but it was still paper, pencil, go online. There was no automated system yet. So at this point, I don't know something automatic, but we did just start a civics course this year because of the new state law. And so it could be that that's something that will be part of the civics course, which will be required for all seniors starting this next year.
One of those groups was, I have several friends with them, is the League of Women Voters. They were there at the high school signing, getting people signed up to vote. Wonderful.
And we learned this week the League of Women Voters was here on Tuesday, League of Women Voters Kitsap. And if you go to vote411.org, it's really easy to register there or check your registration.
And it was because of their lobbying efforts that the state of Washington has that requirement in the education curriculum. So I guess.
Well, I think I like the idea of the automatic registration, or at least the civics class that might introduce that. I listened to Michelle Obama's podcast. She has one episode out, and it was just a conversation between her and Barack, and they were talking about youth and the tremendous engagement that we see by the youth these days, but that the youth don't really feel that voting is part of making the change. And they were discussing, you know, the problems with that, with them not seeing the value of voting. It was interesting. It got me thinking. It's like, how do we convince these youth that are so engaged and so politically aware and wanting change, that one of the easiest things you can do is vote?
Wasn't it a wonderful broadcast of Barack Obama? It made us feel as though we were back in tune with good leadership. And to see those three presidents all speak at his funeral was just enlightening and wonderful. And you look forward to bringing us back to normal, where we have leadership that means something, who is reminiscent of the very best of what we have in this country. That's it just was very refreshing and brought tears to your eyes just to see him there in front of us again.
I agree, Jim. And the beautiful message that Jimmy Carter and Rosalind sent too. They couldn't attend, but wanted to be there, and to know that what we can be back to. But then, and I strongly feel is that we have to change something so that a Donald Trump and people trying to take away our right to vote. That system has to stop. And we have that, we can't just say, okay, somebody is voted in, they believe this way, but there's going to be those forces that we will have to constantly battle, because we see it took a stronghold in our country right now. And I hope to God it doesn't prevail. So that's, but you're right. We have people out there, wonderful people that believe that the government can help, that we should live by our Constitution. Our post office is in the Constitution, and it's under attack, so there's people attacking our Constitution. We have to stop them. So
I want to chime in. I want to just chime in because Sophie had a comment in the chat room, and she can't unmute, but in response to what Christina was saying about voting. So Sophie earlier had said, John Lewis's words definitely make me wish I could vote at a time like this. I'm currently not old enough, but I implore everyone who can vote to do so. And then after Christina was talking about people who choose not to vote, she said, I can't unmute at the moment, but I just want to respond to what Christina was saying. I think it isn't necessarily an unwillingness to vote for most youth, and instead it may be a combination between a feeling of hopelessness about the state of the world.
I just found, and I sent it to Reed, and maybe Reed, you can share this. Something that I'd sort of half remembered, which is that Washington State has a future voters program where you can sign up at 16 and 17 and learn about the voting process. And I'm wondering if we could somehow encourage that program at the high school and get kids to learn more about what voting is and how it works and what it can do. Because it's certainly true that the more you understand about the power of the vote, the more you're willing to bother. And I can quite see why people might feel that it wasn't the powerful tool we keep telling everybody it is. But truly, it is our best tool in a democracy. And as you can see, if you read the news or follow the headlines, there are people who would love to take that away from us right this very moment. But I think I used to do the blood drives at the high school, and we always had voter registration at the same time. And now that we can't meet in person, I'm wondering if we can still kind of create ways to connect with students in terms of this future voters program and voting, what's voting really all about. That could be a lively forum, a lively conversation.
Is there still something involved or up for a vote about the getting registered to vote when you get your driver's license?
Well, it does say in this future voter page, which I just put the link in the chat, that you can sign up to be automatically registered when you get your driver's license or ID at the Department of Licensing. So if you're 16 or older, you can say, I would like to be automatically registered when I'm 18. And you can do that online. You can mail it in a paper form. You can do it at the driver's license office, and you can do it if there are events at your school.
I think as parents or grandparents or elders, we as those folk need to impress upon people who come after us that it's important to vote. And in a lot of ways that can be done early. I remember taking my children as well as my grandchildren to vote, and when I was voting, and they would be there and would watch me pull the lever or whatever. And it was perfectly wonderful. And they still talk about that. That my grandchildren talk about that still. That and they all three of them, all of them vote. And it's it's an interesting, and they do it with consciousness and kindness and thoughtfulness. And I'm a lot of it has to do, goes for me all the way back to my mother, who started the League of Women Voters in a very conservative little burg called Short Hills, New Jersey. And they, and she, very liberal person that she was, started the League of Women Voters. And so I came up, and so the kids from then on, and I've impressed upon my grandkids that they need to, when their children get old enough, and I've got a great grandson who could go, to go and help pull the lever.
Yay, Sheila.
I'd like to hear from Sophie and Kylie if she's still on. What do you feel like might be helpful in terms of that feeling of hopelessness of the state of the world and the idea that voting can change it? I mean, if we can help connect with your generation, I would love to create some kinds of conversations around that. But reaching, it's like you who are here are probably the ones who are definitely already going to vote as early as you possibly can. How do you think we could maybe reach the kids who are feeling so disenfranchised that they just don't have the heart for it?
Yeah, Sophie's writing because she can't unmute, but there she is. I think having more progressive options for political candidates and feeling like important issues for us will be addressed. And so I think that's kind of an interesting, I think one of the ways that that you can help your friends do that is to highlight people who are running, who are not representing maybe the way things are. I think one of the great myths, or maybe not even a myth, but it's certainly part of the story, is that there have been a lot of people who have felt as though, you know, they're kind of both sides the issue. It's like everybody is supporting the status quo, whether they be Democrat or Republican. And so it doesn't really matter who you vote for. They're all going to support the established interests. And although I don't personally think that's true in all cases, I do understand exactly where that comes from, especially after the sort of third way Democratic experience of the Clinton administration, which is obviously ancient history for some of you. But anyway, the idea that that somehow we were going to look after the economy before we look after issues like poverty or voting rights. And I think that if we look and can lift up candidates who are reversing that, who are doing the kind of work that John Lewis was doing, and let our friends know about those candidates, that's how we can inspire people.
Well, I'm seeing Kylie saying that a lot of times it feels like so much is controlled by older generations and we won't be listened to and can't make a difference. And I just have to tell you that I feel like that too, because everybody in the Senate is a generation older than me and totally not listening to anything I say. Not everyone. And I guess that is the thing. The sweeping generalizations are tempting, but there are people who are really working hard and have been working hard for a long time to make a difference. I'm thinking about, do you guys know about Tara Simons, who's running now for district representative in 23rd district? And she was trafficked as a child. She's went through, she was the first person in her family to graduate high school, became a nurse, got in an accident, became addicted to opiates through that accident repair, you know, her follow-up to that, ended up in jail, got out, turned her life around, went to law school, and then had to fight this with the state Senate to get the right to take the bar, because the people who administered the bar exam felt that her character was clearly too poor to be allowed to be a lawyer because she had been in jail. Well, she's been an tireless advocate ever since and her kids are people of color, and she has a very complicated family, and there's someone who totally gets what it's like to be young, to be disenfranchised, to be caught in a system. And I'm so heartened by people like Tara or Cyrus Habib. There have been some amazing people in our system who really, really work hard. And I see Kylie also said it feels like we're choosing between the better of two evils, and totally. I think we've all felt that most of our lives, but all we can choose is better because we don't have best. I'm not sure human is best. I'm not sure we've got that chops to be best, but we can always try to be better.
I agree, and you know, I look a lot of times when we look at elections, we just look at the president of the United States, I look at we started down at our city council level and our school boards, and we work up and we get people involved then at that time, and they can work up through the system. And if we like progressive, I'm a progressive, obviously, and always have been, always felt like in some places where I lived, I was a fish out of water, you know. I was that crazy liberal woman. But the thing is that we have to keep working at the bottom on up. And, you know, the Tea Party did a beautiful job of that. They actually succeeded. They did a great job of going into lower, you know, into more localized governments and then work their way up. And this is actually is a beautiful template for us progressives, you young people, to, especially because you're going to be taking the torch, is to say, yeah, I got to start here. I've got to start at my city council. Then I go to my county, and then I'll go to the state. And if you don't want to run, you know, at least support those people. And we have a ballot sitting in front of us right now that there's some wonderful candidates there. You know, read their backstories like Tara and what. And I'm not trying to tell people who to vote for, but that's where we start. We start local. We start having chats like this with each other. I mean, this is so powerful. It really is. You don't realize how powerful it is, but it is. Our students are saying is that they feel hopeless because of the amount of lobbyist money that goes in, and that our representatives are listening to the lobbyists and not to their voting constituents. And I have to apologize because unfortunately that's been going on way too long. And we let that happen. My generation let that happen. And I apologize for that because it is so wrong. That's not what that's an oligarchy. That is a country is being ran on wealth and corporations, not on what people. And we were never supposed to be there, but we are here now. And we were asleep at the switch. And it's horrible. I don't want you to inherit a country like that. But you have, and we have to stop it. I mean, those are two choices. Let it happen, continue, or stop it. It has to be stopped.
Gigi has written something.
Yeah.
There.
It does lift the spirits to listen to people who want to see the same changes. It really does. And I think that's two things about that. One is we got to keep talking to each other, but also we really got to do things like that 5 calls where you call 5 times every day, because one of the things I get told a lot when I make those calls is I'll say, I know that so-and-so is already all over this issue, but I thought I should call. And they said, please do, because we get 10-to-1 calls against, because the right is very well organized. And there are people who are actually paid to call and say, I hate Governor Inslee and I don't want to wear a mask or whatever it is. And so for us to call over and over and over and talk about equity issues and talk about all the things we care about, whether it's ecological protections or, you know, voting rights, so many things, just keep calling, because every single one adds up. And so I've apologized and said, I bet you're sick of hearing from me. And they always say, no, please keep calling, because we do keep track of this and we need the numbers. So if you don't know about 5 calls, maybe Reed, can you post that link? It's a really handy one that gives you, it asks you what issues you're interested in, and then tells you a little script even, which is nice if you're like me and you start crying when you start talking about certain things. You can stay on task a little better. There you go, 5 calls. Thank you, Karen. Really easy, and you can change it up, but you put in your zip code and it will tell you who your representative people are that you can talk to about different issues. It's great. And if you just get into the habit of doing that every morning after you brush your teeth, it's a good thing to do, right? Civic engagement.
Yes, civic engagement.